did the ANC have some kind of an agreement or understanding? Because now Anglo-American was now pressurizing the apartheid regime to scrap apartheid. So in a way, they were more or less on the same side.
Yes.
But for different reasons.
Yes.
But so...
Because when you speak of Anglo-American even, we just learned that the gold reserves are supporting the unemployment fund in England.
Oh, are they?
So in England, they get an unemployment stipend, and it's from our mines, basically.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
While we are just...
Yeah, no, the English have been cheating us since they came here in 1795.
So then what happens? Because I want us to get to now post 94, because we eventually have to get to the point of now we're at MK.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
You mean the new party?
The new party.
Oh.
Because now we're moving from 94, because right now that's what's happening. And
you see, as I pointed out that personally I thought there was going to be a lot of conflict inside the ANC.
Yes.
Especially about the economic policy of the government. That would be point number one. Point number two, the big corporations in the country were going to look for partners from inside the ANC who would not want things to change.
Exactly. So
what big business came up with, which I must give credit to them, a strategy to neutralize this anti-business, because, they had been exploiting the Africans from the days of slavery, going back to the 17th century. So they knew that black people in South Africa were hostile to them. So they came up with a scheme called Black Economic Empowerment. So with this scheme called Black Economic Empowerment, they then went to leaders of the ANC, especially the ones who were not in exile, the ones who were inside the country. They went to these leaders and said, we are very sorry we oppressed you. We want to repent for our bad ways. So we'll give you some money. You personally, not
the collective.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Just you, Patrice.
Yes, you, Patrice, you, Cyril Ramaphosa, and so on.
Yes.
So they then, Sanlam was actually the leader of this movement. Sanlam had a company called Metropolitan Life, which was a life insurance company. Most of his holders of life policies were African and colored. But it was a big company listed in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So Sanlam said, okay, you can take over this company. What we will do, we will go to IDC, which was run by one of the Afrikaner guys, and borrow money for you to borrow money from IDC, Industrial Development Corporation. And then you buy shares in Metropolitan, and you become the majority voter in this. And then you can pay yourself whatever you want. So they chose these black leaders. So they chose the black leaders if I remember correctly. The head of this black initiative was a man called Dr. Ndato Mutlana. Ndato Mutlana was a medical doctor living in Soweto, and he had been very involved in the struggle against apartheid. From when he was a student at Forte, when he had been in the ANC Youth League in the 40s or 50s. And so he was a genuine revolutionary. So he put together this team to buy in inverted commas, because actually they didn't have the money to buy. Then Cyril was one of them. Zwelakhe Sisulu, who the son of the late Walter, was also one of them. Sam Mutsonyane, Dr. Sam Mutsonyane, who set up the African Bank, and he was head of NAFCOC at some stage. He founded one of the founders of NAFCOC. He was also in on the scheme. Who else? There was somebody, I think his name was Mukhali, but I can't remember, from FAPCOS. You see, NAFCOC was pro-ANC, FAPCOS was pro-PAC. Oh yeah, no, they had the 𝐿, who was vice president of the PAC. So he was also brought in, because this is like in the early 90s. So these guys set up this black economic empowerment. Many people naively think that black economic empowerment is there to advance black people. Actually, it's there to do the opposite.
Shucks, it's to create black fronts, to create the impression of a black
or
excellence.
People, partners, black partners for big business in South Africa.
So then, is there black excellence without white influence?
Well,
because these are all these names you're naming are people that we look up to and respectable, and it's like these are the people that, So when we hear that it was created by the system, then what does that mean?
Sure. That's why I was saying it's a long story. A very long story. Well, let's take one step back. The wealth of South Africa was largely created by black South Africans. Well, first they owned the land.
Yeah.
So it was their land.
Yeah.
So it was taken from them, and the minerals under the land were also taken from them. However, they became the workers to build the mine. So in real terms, the profits and the capital belongs to them as well.
Yes.
Belongs to them. So when we're talking about capital in South Africa, it actually is a national asset. But people think it's a white man this, a white man that. Actually, the reality, if you look
it's supposed to be.
But it is a national asset. If you look
But we're not benefiting. It's not our asset if we're not benefiting.
No, it is our asset. If you look at companies at the stock exchange, listed at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, one of the main shareholders in those companies is the government employees pension fund. So they are big shareholders in these big companies. So that goes towards their pension. But when you have medical aid, when you pay for your medical aid, it's managed by somebody because you are not sick every day.
Yes.
So it isn't spent for most of the time. It's sitting with the medical. So the medical aid company gives that money to fund managers who then invest it in the big companies in the stock exchange. But you don't know that, but they do it. You see, so when you actually start to look at who owns these big companies in South Africa, many people naively think the white managers own them. They don't. Actually, a big part of some of these big companies are owned by the black people through their pension funds, their medical aid, their whatever it is, savings that they have to make. But they don't understand that how then to get the profit and to have a say in how these companies are managed. They just give it to fund managers. Because the fund managers say, okay, one day you will be 70 and you will need a pension. So give me your savings today. I will manage them for you.
These things they call annuities.
Yes, and we'll do all that for you. So, but that money buys shares in the companies in the Johannesburg stock. So you are actually a co-owner of Anglo-American.
But you don't know it though.
Well, you don't know because you are not asking. It's because you are not asking. So nobody will tell you. If you don't ask, well, they won't tell. But your money, your savings are in Sanlam, in Old Mutual. You are a co-owner of this. So we have to be careful about who owns the wealth of South Africa. A lot of the wealth of South Africa is actually owned by black people. But they are not insisting that, okay, do this with my wealth, don't do.
So how do we do that? Because, I mean, a lot of us would love to know. We don't know how to take control of our power. That's what the problem is.
That's where the problem is that we have a lot of power. The black people in South Africa have a lot of power. But as you say, they don't quite know how to use their power. And of course, the other side is not going to tell you. They say, leave it to us, we will invest the money, and now and then we'll pay your pension or whatever it is that, out the profits that come from. So that's what really our trade unions were supposed to do. One of the things they were supposed to do. In fact, when I was at COSATU, I suggested that they set up a bank of their own, COSATU. Because COSATU then had 1.8 million members.
Whoa.
And these were paying every week subscription. So I said, let's set up a bank, a commercial bank, which will finance black entrepreneurs, which will finance housing for our members who were living in the shanty towns. But I was overruled. Now, I won't say who.
You're allowed to, I must tell you. We like juice here.
I was overruled by my boss, which was Jay Naidu.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't know who else he was talking to. And, yeah.
It's so strange that you would be overruled when you say, let's create a black bank. And we always hear how there's all these obstacles and barriers into entry, especially into the banking system.
If COSATU had created a bank, then we wouldn't be talking about barriers to entry and all those things.
Exactly.
You see, we wouldn't. But for some reason, I never, since he said no, I haven't asked Jay Naidu. That was many years ago.
Why did you stop my idea of the bank?
No, because he was my boss.
Yes, I was saying you need to ask him.
I had persuaded the then president of the Development Bank of Southern Africa, DBSA, to help COSATU to set up the bank. And there was an Afrikaans gentleman called Simon Brandt. He liked my idea. He thought it was a good idea. So he said he will set up the bank. But he had to get an instruction from the General Secretary. And the General Secretary, of course, had to get an instruction from the Central Committee. And so now the approval list gets bigger and bigger. And then the...
That's why I was asking Guti, was it genuinely black unions or... is there isandla semfene somewhere?
No, I think it was genuinely. Oh, there were white people working there, but they weren't the only ones. I mean, the great majority were black workers who were the shop stewards who ran the union at the factory floor. So they were real black organizations.
Okay, so now as we wrap up, I want to talk about, do you think that we have followed the correct trajectory since 94, or where did we lose it, or what went wrong?
Well, the negotiations from my side, I think, were fine. We got a constitution that is relatively a good constitution in terms of the intention of equality, of getting equality for all South Africans, political equality. And it has worked reasonably well. What was not in the negotiations was the economic side of things.
Which was the most important thing, because, I mean, what the hell, what's the point of a vote if without economic policy?
Economic policy in the so-called capitalist democratic system is made by the ruling party, whoever is the ruling party. That is the rationale why it's not in the constitution, is that the ruling party, once it gets elected, it makes the economic changes if it wants to make. So the ANC hasn't been making much.
I was about to get to that, because I was going to say that I remember that they could only change the constitution after a 2/3 majority. And they did get a 2/3 majority, but they did not change economic policies. So what would that be?
No, the economic policy was running, it had to be made by Parliament. You see, running on a separate track.
Okay.
But it was, the ANC had the power, and it still has the power to come up with an economic policy that benefits everybody. But as I pointed out, through things like black economic empowerment, a lot of its leaders have been co-opted to just leave things as they are.
They've been given their mansions
their mansions, and many are billionaires and given the shares, and so
they're far removed from the needs of the people.
Very, very far removed. So they are not going to be making policies that make the guys who gave them the money unhappy, because then...
But then that would speak to then, are you suggesting that ANC is captured? Because then if they're not making policies and decisions that their handlers don't like, then it would mean that the ANC does not represent the people.
Well, Nsika, that's why I said you need another podcast with Cyril. He is the president of the, and ask him that question. Let's hear what his answer is.
I don't think he's going to come. He keeps running away.
So try and get him. Try.